Fun.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the writing class. Oh no, the last time she beat me, it was not happening today. It was not going down. Bam, one last interview of the day, and who takes the baton? Shane. Really? That's not nice. That's not. You're not.
No one saw that.
No one saw that you threw something. She threw something at my head, y'all. Y'all are listening on the podcast.
Oh my goodness! Right, I forget.
Y'all were listening
on
the podcast.
Everyone on the podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. So Jade, I'm Jade,
and I'm Winona. Oh yes. What was I saying? Social distance style.
Right.
Oh, she remembers to introduce us.
And we write literary life guides with pop poetry. Yes, y'all. Not a real poet.
Because a real poet rolled right in there.
Segue-ish. What? We doing this on this party. We are doing it. All right.
Oh, so that napkin should have been in the dance.
Yeah, it shouldn't have been, but I was going to let you do it because I was like, ha, 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 for her. So we wrote and I thought divorce was bad with other life lessons. And I thought being grown up was easy. If only I would be. Do you have to put a so near my face? I feel like you're just trying to hit me in the face of what you are, right? If only I would meet a memoir and verse, pouring coffee, a lady's tale. And then Winona has on her own Widow's Web series. And you can check out those where you'll get your audiobooks. And if you're just up to like reading some books, and one of my favorite books that have probably gonna get recorded one day, and I did my journey alone.
You're not supposed to have favorites.
It's true, but I have one. And so yeah, you can find out everything your ladies are doing on www.andithoughladies.com.
Before we start with our wonderful guests, why you're not supposed to have favorites come out like feels gold?
I don't know, Winona. Anyway, y'all aren't here to hear us talk about field goals. You're here to hear from our wonderful guests.
Wonderful guests, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'd be delighted to, and I'm so thrilled to be here at the end of your day because you guys are in a mood, and I'm enjoying it. My name is Rick Lupert, Southern California poet. 3 things about me. I have 3 cats. I wake up with them every morning. They don't get into the bed until after my wife leaves. I don't know what that means. Thing 2, I've written 25 books of poetry, technically 26. One just isn't out yet, so I don't know if that counts. It's like if a poetry book falls in the forest, does it exist yet if it's not published? I may be mixing metaphors there. I'm not sure. And every morning, I prepare myself a cup of Death Wish coffee because that's the level of caffeine that I need to be a functional human being.
We are writers.
I understand, and I feel
like writers and mornings we should be allergic to them too.
I think I am allergic to the mornings, but it doesn't matter. So what got you writing poetry? Because we need to know, since we're just pop poets over here.
You seem like you're a real legitimate.
I know, he has the voice for it, like. So I mean, like the voice for it.
That's my Zoom voice. I just picked it up last year. I used to talk completely differently until the pandemic. What got me into poetry? What's that?
Was it really, really high, like you were on helium, or no?
I've been using this voice for so much this year. I've completely forgotten what the previous voice was, but it's a good question. I'll look for some old recordings and see if I can get them too. I like to come off as legitimate, so thank you for that. If that's the impression I'm giving, then something is working. What got me into poetry? I think you asked. First of all, I didn't know I was into poetry to start when I was doing it. I think in 3rd grade, some poets came to my elementary school and they said, "You're going to write poetry now." And they gave us all kinds of assignments and things to do. And at the end, they gave us a book of the stuff that we'd written. And I remember that I wrote an acrostic poem about pigs that went something like, "Pigs are very piggish, irregularly attached to mud. Gosh darn it, pigs are messy." And I think that was probably 1970 something. It was in the middle of the 70s, maybe the late 70s when I wrote that. I didn't think about poetry much. Years went by. I started walking around with a little journal before we all had phones that we could type things in, and I would just write down funny little observations, things that I thought were funny. And sometimes they got longer and I didn't know what I was doing. And so I went, there was an event here in Southern California at a place called the Iguana Cafe. I saw it in the paper, the LA Weekly, the local alternative paper. It said, poetry circle. Come to the poetry circle. You'll read a poem and you'll get feedback. And I thought, okay, good. I'll go to this. I'll read something out of this little journal. They'll say, no, that's not poetry. And then I'll know, and I can move on and do something else. And so I did. It was on a Sunday. I was sitting in a circle of people. I read my poem, and lo and behold, they liked it, and I got some really good feedback about it. And that was 1990, I think, and I've been like pretty much involved with poetry ever since. But I think it was at that moment at the Iguana Poetry Circle where I decided I could officially label myself a poet, or at least someone interested in poetry.
Wow. See, that was like an amazing story. One day when I go up, I'm gonna have amazing stories.
And see, like the way that it went, it was like perfect.
Perfect.
It was like the introduction to a reading, and like right now you're like, and then go ahead
and
read.
Don't read. Don't read. Let's talk about these 26 books. Like, did they come out of this mythical journal?
I wrote them all the next day after that event. You guys are poets.
Well,
yeah.
We're pop poets, don't we?
Forgive me. You know what you are. You've stated it, and that's what you are. But you understand that you write poems, and sometimes a lot of them come at once, and sometimes it's a while before you write one. So after that period of time, the things I were writing, I labeled them poems. And I started going to readings and things like that. A couple of years went by. And I've had a lot of them, and I thought, man, I should put a book out. But it's a lot of work to like, well, which what am I going to put in this book? I've got years with that one. What order they go in? So I went on a trip to Paris, 1995 to 1996, 2 weeks, and in Paris I wrote over those 2 weeks a whole bunch of poems about Paris, about being there, observations, that kind of thing. And I came home with essentially this little book of poems. And I thought, I could put this out because it's already in the order I want it to be, and that would be so easy. And I don't have to do the hard work of picking what poems from my other body of work. So I put out this book, 1995, I think it was, maybe 96, I forget. The years, they just go by. It was called Paris, It's the Cheese. And it was, I felt like I was cheating because I ignored all the poems I'd written that I'd read at readings, and I just put out this Paris book, and people kind of dug it. The next year, I actually did the work, and I put out an anthology of poems, a collection. It was called I Am My Own Orange County. And then I started putting out more travel books. I really dug that there was like a theme, so I think I wrote a book of poems in Fargo, North Dakota, called Mowing Fargo. I don't remember if that was the next book. Do you love Fargo, or are you just?
I like Fargo.
Hey, more importantly, the people in Fargo like us.
Yay! More importantly, they buy poetry, which is great.
Yeah.
That is good. I had a good experience there. I was invited there by some friends, and I did a reading there, and it was great. And so, most of my books are travel books, like written. Cheating books that I've written on a vacation with my wife. The last one, it's called the Tokyo Van Nuys Express. It's poems I wrote in Japan on a trip we went on there before COVID, the summer before COVID. I just finished writing a book called that I wrote in Hawaii. That's called I Am Not Writing a Book of Poems in Hawaii. That's the name of the book. And there's a whole bunch of them.
I need it. I need that book.
You do need that book. It doesn't exist yet. That's the one that's waiting for a tree to fall in the forest to know it exists. But
it exists. It exists.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
If the title is that cool, it is therefore
it therefore exists.
Therefore, it
exists. The ladies.
Yep, absolutely. That's how we do it around here. We be like, listen, it exists. Leave it.
I'm going to put that on the back cover. Winona and Jane say this book exists.
Yes. Yeah, you should. You should say it. And you know what? People are going to be like,
but why?
No, wait. The people that know us, that listen to us and be like, that's so the ladies. They would definitely be like, oh, this book exists.
It sure does.
I love it. I love it.
Okay, you were in the middle of talking. We interrupted you.
That's okay. This is a two-way conversation. This is how it works. So most of the books are travel books. I've got another anthology that came out maybe 5 or 6 years ago called Making Love to the 50-Foot Woman, a true story. And I write Jewish poetry a lot too. I write a poem every week after reading the week's Torah portion, which is kind of a Jewish tradition to like study the text and talk about it. From my point of view, it comes from the perspective of really being interested in the tradition, knowing that the people before me did that, as opposed to like I'm a zealot believer Orthodox kind of person. It's more like I just love that people before me have done this, and so I'm going to do it too. And the collection of those that came out is called God Wrestler. That's that book. And I still publish these poems every week because it turns out after you do it for a year, you're not supposed to stop looking at this text. So I've been doing that for a few years and publishing those online.
Wow. I mean, you're super busy. I love it.
First of all, it's not cheating to write a book while on vacation.
No,
just
do it all the time.
I mean, we were on tour for 26 weeks out of the year before COVID. So every book we wrote was on vacation.
Technically on vacation.
We were not home.
We were not home. And I love that it follows a theme. So now we can be like the And I Thought series. Not such a bad idea. So validation.
So one of the things that I recognize you said you went to Paris to write. Was that so you could get like a complete clear mind and with no distractions and have plenty of creativity? Otherwise,
or take it off on taxes because I'm gonna write this book and I can then take it off on taxes this whole trip.
Yeah, that works too.
I went to Paris because I had a fantasy about walking along the Seine in a beret with a baguette under my arm. That's why I went to Paris. I'd always wanted to go. I was in my young 20s. I grew up really without any money, and so the idea that I could my first trip was a trip to Paris. It felt like a really big deal. I took French in junior high school, and half the class was culture, like learning about France and Paris and French literature and all that. So I went because I really wanted to go to Paris, and the fact that I wrote a book there, was something I discovered by the time the trip was over. And subsequent to that, there's now, since I've written so many travel books, there's kind of an expectation, okay, I'm going on a vacation to enjoy myself and really immerse myself in a place and discover it and be there and eat their foods and meet their people. And I hope a book will come out of it because I've done it so many times before, and I've been lucky that that's happened a lot of times. The idea of writing it off on my taxes, having just submitted my taxes yesterday, I should have been doing that all along because, but I don't, you guys are probably rich on poetry. Poets are all rich. We all have millions of dollars from our poetry exploits. If maybe like me, you don't quite make as much money on poetry as you would like to, like declaring that as a business expense, the business expense tends to be more money than you've actually made on the poetry, and then the IRS says, you can't really do that anymore. So,
okay. So I'm sorry. Oh man, there goes my hopes and dreams. Going to Paris for free. Anyway, doesn't matter.
What did you like about Paris, by the way?
Yes. What do you love?
Food wise, because the rest of it we were like, yeah, that's nice, but food.
Food. So I'm cheese is cheese and bread. All I really need.
Oh my goodness! Thank you for saying it, because I was gonna be like, right after he says this, he's gonna be like some great meal, and I'm gonna say
cheese and bread.
Like when I go to Paris, like literally, you will catch me any time of the day with a piece of bread and some cheese. I'd be like, I can have some meat, I guess, but this cheese and bread.
That's all you need. That's all I need. I was at a party last weekend, and they had this huge spread of food that they got in, and they had baguette and cheese, and that was like, okay, that's where I'm going.
That's all you need. You don't need anything else. I love it.
I gotta admit though, like walking around eating cheese and bread and just watching the people and interact in the cafes. Oh my God, it's so much fun.
It's so much fun.
That's what I just learned from you. I'm sorry. And then we'll get back to you. We swear.
No, we don't.
Don't mind me. You guys talk.
Talks amongst yourselves because you don't see each other enough.
This is an interview for him. No.
It's obvious.
So I think we figured out what we're doing wrong. See, he goes to places like Paris and Tokyo and Hawaii, We go to the Greek islands and party till 8 a.m. That might be where we went wrong.
That's maybe.
I bet they have. I haven't been to Greece, but I bet there's good food there.
Oh, let's not start on that because we'll be here another like 5 hours. So let's talk about what
your publishing journey.
And your publishing journey, and then yes, because poets need to know how to get published.
Okay, so I'm a big advocate of self-publishing. I've had, I've had books out on various small presses, my perspective on it, and wonderful people with the best of intentions, nothing wrong with it. But the fact is that unless you have a major publishing contract, like a major publishing contract, if your goal is to make, at least make your money back on your book, you're probably gonna do better for yourself if you're able to put the book together and make it look nice, and promote it by putting it out yourself. Most of the small presses don't have the budget to do the kind of promotion that's necessary to get the word out there about your book. I happen to be a graphic designer, and I'm really picky about the way things look. And so I've seen a lot of books that the content is great, but I don't love the way it looks. And whereas I don't think you should judge a book by its cover, as a graphic designer, I really want my book to look good, and I want it to look like a piece of art itself, So I'm more comfortable, until that major publishing deal comes along someday, putting books out myself. I do the graphic design on them. And the fact is that, so many tools have developed that are so easy for anyone to use, with Ingram Spark or Kindle Direct Publishing, which are the major ones to use that are the least expensive to use. You can put your book out for free, basically, with these companies. It's available everywhere. Order as many copies as you want for yourself for a few dollars each, depending on how big it is. Or don't order any copies, and it's still available for the world to order, and use their online tools to make a cover look nice, to make sure the manuscript looks right, etc. And it's all basically, it's work, but it's free to do, and then your book is out there, and it's a nice paperback book that looks like anybody else's paperback book, So my journey in publishing has really, even I was on kind of a mid-sized press for a little while, and and they did such a nice job. They did such a nice job with making making the books look nice and putting, at least getting them to exist in the world. But I still found that, at that level, I'm more comfortable doing it myself, promoting it the way I want, and so that's where I've kind of landed in terms of publishing.
Absolutely. Okay, so now I have like 3 questions. 2. So here's 2. Let's talk promotions and how you promote, and when should people start marketing their book?
You should start marketing it almost when you have the idea to write it. In particular, if you want to get anyone to review it, most folks aren't gonna, review a book that's been out for a while. They want advanced copies. They want, they want to, if you want to pay money for a publicist, which is also a good thing to do, most publicists will tell you a lot of the work needs to happen before the book comes out. So that's really key. You should really be thinking about publicizing your book, what it's about, before it comes out. Beyond that, once it comes out, you can send review copies to people. I like to do a publication reading. I put together my own reading. I do it on Zoom. Again, like, these tools exist for us to reach as many people as we want, that never existed before. So I've started doing my publication readings on Zoom. Why? Because it's not that it's not great to have a reading at a venue that the local audience might come to, but why not create an event that the entire world can come to? Or Zoom or Facebook Live or whatever you do, you can. This book of poems that I wrote in Hawaii. There's a poem about the guy who was a tour guide for us on this one tour around the island of Oahu, who as luck would have it, happened to have been a slam poet, right? And so I wrote a whole bunch of stuff on this one little tour that we went on, and he gets mentioned a lot. He's in Hawaii. When I have my publication event for this book, I can have him come on and read a poem. You know, like if I was doing a local event, like I can't afford to fly Jack in from Hawaii as much as I'd love to, so he could participate in this event. You know, so like this whole electronic world has opened up for us to reach literally the entire planet, except for Russia right now, but that's that's a whole other thing. You know, so like I'm really an advocate of using the tools that exist to get the word out about your book. Another thing, if you're using, here's just a tip, if you're using the tools like Amazon or Kindle Direct Publishing or Ingram Spark, where they put your book up on Amazon, there's all kinds of stuff that you have to fill out. Like they want you to pick a category for your book to appear in. So my books are travel books. So I list them in poetry as a category. But when my Japan poetry book came out, I also listed it in the category of like Japan travel or Tokyo travel and fewer books are coming out in those categories. And so for a brief time, like, when I first put my book out and the initial, bunch of them were sold, just because only so many books in those categories are being sold, my book was like the number one new release in Japan travel poetry. It's like, or in Japan travel books, period. So it's like, I don't know what I got out of that outside of being able to, like, now I could say my book was the number one, for a short period of time. So there's like little tricks to working the Amazon system to getting your book, on different lists for short periods of time, etc. So, like anything. And also, if you can afford to spend even just a little bit money on advertising, like Facebook advertising or YouTube advertising for videos or something like that, you can do it for just a few dollars, $20, $25 for, to boost a post or something like that. So it's not a whole lot of money, and you can select audiences of people who might be interested in your book. Like, who's interested in Japan travel? Well, what if I advertise just to that group and not to like a bunch of people who are also poets who are more concerned about getting their own book out than buying your poetry book, that kind of thing. So like reach outside of the people who you already know to try to get to new people.
That's fabulous. And I feel like my advice question is now out the window. So we're going to talk about two more things. One last thing, and then where people can find your books. But first, let's talk editing. For self-published, for indie published people, let's talk editing and what kind of editors that you use on your books.
I'm very lucky to have a wife who is willing to read my book before it goes out. It's really important to put someone else's eyes on what you're doing, and that could be a friend. Hopefully, at least for proofreading. Some of my travel books, there's like tons of little observations, that are really short, 1 or 2 lines. And at one point I realized I can't put each one of these on a single page because that's going to be a 10,000 page book, So I started numbering them. Like, well, here's a poem about this, and there's 30 observations. So with Roman numerals, for example. So like the first thing my wife does is look at the Roman numerals and make sure that they're right. She almost had a heart attack when I told her that in the new book there's one that goes up to 50, and I have to discover like what does L mean in Roman numerals. So it's the key here though is having someone else's eyes on it. And someone who you respect, someone who at least, even if it's not an eye for poetry, an eye for proofreading. Spell check is not going to catch everything. There are words in there that are the same, that are correct words, but might not be the word you meant to put in there. And you're not going to see a little red line under it in your document. So you really need someone else's eyes on it. And if you can get another poet's eyes on it, who might be able to, have a different kind of sensibility, you might get other kinds of feedback about the work itself and say, well, I'm not sure that works for me. Not a proofreading kind of thing, like what did you mean here, that kind of thing. Like, I think it's really important to go to readings and share your work out loud. Because when you read your own work out loud, you get to know it better, you know. And you guys are spoken word artists. You're out there on tour, right? It's like I bet you've read a poem for the first time and you realize that you kind of tripped over a line because like, ooh, I didn't realize that was that comes off that way, you know. Or someone didn't laugh where you wanted them to laugh, or someone didn't go, oh, you know, at that line that you thought was super powerful. And so you get that's a way of proofreading and editing your work. You're realizing what works and what doesn't work by putting it out there in front of people.
Wow, that's fabulous. Where can people buy these books and find out more about you?
My website is poetrysuperhighway.com, and there's links. There's like samples of all my books there, and as well as links to get them on Amazon. If you just go to Amazon and type my name, Rick Lupert, a billion things come up, and you can go right there if you want to buy them sight unseen without reading samples poems. But poetrysuperhighway.com.
Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure. See, what a thing to wrap up our day.
Right? We actually learned so much about
I learned so much.
Maybe after talking to you, I think I'm going to start writing it.
Okay, anyway, no, I can't do this with you. It's too late on a Friday. Okay, so I guess we'll go ahead and wrap us up. You can find out everything your ladies are doing on www.andithoughladies.com. While you're there, take a moment, go to the middle of the page, see the charities that we probably support. Maybe support them also. We thank you in advance for that. And just remember, y'all, wisdom is all around you if
you're open to finding it and accepting it. So peace and love, you guys, from Winona
and Jade. Bye-bye. Oh, yeah, thanks for listening.